Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? AZD here with you, and I'm going to shoot this video to talk about the consumer price index that just recently come out. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the inflation has fallen for the lowest level it has in over 2 years, and it brings it down to, for the year over year, for the month of March at 5% even. So, consumer price index for the month of March 2023, the consumer price index for all urban consumers rose 0.1% in March on a seasonal adjusted basis after increasing 0.4% in February, when statistics reported over the last 12 months, the all-time index increased 5.0% before seasonal adjustment. So the index for shelter was by far the largest contributor to the monthly all-time increase. This more than offset a decline in the energy index, which increased 3.5% over the month, as all major energy components indexes declined. The food index was changed in March, with the food at home index falling 0.3%, which is a good thing because remember, before all those other CPI data was coming out, food inflation was off the chain. Like, we had eggs going for like almost $8 a dozen and things like that. But the index for all times items, less food and energy, so remember, food and energy is not included in this, rose 0.4% in March after rising 0.5% in February. So for the month of February and January, as well as December, we were seeing a real big increase in food prices, which was bringing up the inflation for food very high. But it wasn't included in the CPI data because a lot of the CPI data take out the food and energy costs. Index which increased in March includes shelter, motor vehicle, insurance, airline fares, household furniture and operations, and new vehicles. Remember, before we had a problems with used vehicles had crazy inflation. Now it's just the new vehicles having crazy inflation. The index for medical care and index for used cars, trucks were among those decreased over the month. Like I just said, the used cars and trucks decreased over the month. New cars and new vehicles increased with the CPI data. The all-item index increased 5.0% for the 12-month ended in March. This was the smallest 12-month increase since the period ended in May 2021. The all-time less food and energy index rose 5.6% over the last 12 months. The energy index decreased, which is a good thing, decreased 6.4% over the last 12 months ending in March, and the food index increased 8.5% over the last year. So even though the food index went down for the month of March, it still is high for the year over year price index. So here's a quick glimpse of the breakdown of the table of the percentage change in the CPI urban consumer. And let's talk about food real quick. The food index was unchanged in March. The food at home index fell 0.3% over the month, the first decline in the index since September of 2020. 3 of the 6 major grocery store food groups indexes decreased over the month. The index for meats, poultry, fish, and eggs, there it is, decreased by 1.3% in March. So that's good to hear. As the index for eggs fell 10.9%, because remember, back in November, December, those months right there, the index price for eggs, I think, went up to like almost 16%. So it's a good thing to see that it's coming down to 10.9%. Fruits and vegetable index declined. Fruits and energy index declined 1.3% over the month, and the dairy related products index decreased by 0.1%. In contrast, the index for other foods at home rose 0.4% in March, following a 0.3% increase in previous months. So it seemed like the winter months, those food index was higher than what is going to be going on. The cereal and bakery products index increased 0.6% over the month, and the non-alcoholic beverage index rose 0.2%. The food away from home index rose 0.6% in March, as it did in the previous 2 months. So people are still eating away from home, and the prices of food away from home is constantly increasing. The index of full service meal increased 0.7% over the month, and the index for limited service meals increased 0.5%. So let's see what else we have within the CPI data. Let's go with the energy. The energy index fell 3.5% in March after decreasing 0.6% in February. The gasoline index decreased 4.6% in March, which is a good sign, following a 1.0% increase in previous months. So before seasonal adjustment, gasoline price rose 1.0% in March. A natural gas index decreased 7.1% over this month, following an 8.0% decline in February. So natural gas is going down, and that's a good thing, especially for the winter months, even though the winter months weren't as harsh as we usually expect. It's good to see that natural gas is going down. The index for electricity decreased by 0.7% in March, the largest decline in index since January of 2021. So it seemed like a lot of these things are going down, and regardless of seasonal adjustment and things like that, it seems like inflation is going down. Not to consider what's going on with the bank, we also got to think about if the Federal Reserve will be increasing the Fed rate even by 0.5%, because I believe that's the projection that they're trying to go with 0.5%, and that'll be like the only rate hike for the rest of the year. That's what they're saying, but we might not see any more rate hike, but what we see is what they call is credit tightening, so more tightening of the credit. All items, less food and index. Let's look at that real quick. So the index for all items, less food and energy, rose 0.4% in March after rising 0.5% in February. The shelter index increased 0.6% over the month after rising 0.8% in February. The index for rent and index for owners equivalent rent both rose 0.5% in March, following a large increase in previous month. The index for lodging away from home increased 2.7% in March. So we're seeing a lot of things with the shelter. The shelter index was the dominant factor in the monthly increase in the index for all times, less food and energy. Among the other index that rose in March was the index for motor vehicle insurance, which increased 1.2%, and the index for airline fares, which increased 4.0%. The index for household furnishing and operation, new vehicle education, apparel also increased in March. In contrast, the index for used cars and trucks fell 0.9% in March, continuing a recent downtrend. So basically, don't buy anything new, buy stuff used. Wait to see how the market reacts to these numbers. Wait to see how the economy reacts to these numbers, because it seems that some things are increasing as the warmer months are amongst us, and some things are decreasing as we go into the warmer months. So stuff that I see that was decreasing was energy prices, gas, natural gas. But things that I was seeing was increasing that had a big impact was the shelter price. Was the shelter costs, including rent, mortgage insurance, insurance on homes, insurance on cars, just a wide variety of things. So we definitely see some increase and decrease, but the big factor of the consumer price index that's having a big toll is the shelter. You know, the rents, the mortgage, and stuff like that. It's a big increase in those, especially with rents. Rents are up, they're saying about like 18% over the last 6 months or so. So definitely check out the CPI data. You can go to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics and check out more information. You can look at the data more clearly, look at the tables. Let's see what the media is saying. So inflation slowed for a 9th straight month in March amid drops in both gasoline and groceries. So that's good, because that was a big thing. Even though those aren't included in the CPI data, it's good to see that gasoline and grocery prices are dropping, and this is coming from the USA Today. But an underlying inflation measure, the better reflects a long-term trend, accelerating on another surge in rent. See, there we go, talking about the rent, surge in rent. It's a big thing that's keeping the inflation high. Consumer price overall increased 5% for a year early, down from 6% in February, and a 40-year high and 9.1% last June. That's how high the inflation was last June, according to the Labor Department Consumer Price Index. This is the smallest annual gain since May 2021, so that's a good thing. Well, the Fed continued to raise interest rates, so without core inflation rising, the report likely boasted that the Fed tentative plan to raise its key interest rate by another 0.25%, or I'll say 0.5, but it's going by 0.25% in May, capping 5 points of the rate hikes the past year in an aggressive bid to wrestle down inflation, say economists. So last time they rose it by 0.25%, and we see inflation went down by about 2 basis points, I believe, from last month. So still pay attention to grocery prices. Will grocery prices go down? According to the USA Today, grocery prices unexpectedly declined 0.3%. They're still up 8.4% annually, but that's down from 10.9% in February, so that's a good thing. The cost of commodities such as wheat and corn has fallen in recent months because of the easing global demand. That's good. That's good. In March, the price of eggs dropped by 10 points. We already discussed that. We already discussed rent. Rent inflation is up like crazy. Got to look into that. And the next inflation report is not exactly the CPI report. It's not exactly the CPI report, but the personal consumption exponential price index, which the Federal Reserve look at when they decide if they're going to raise their Fed rates or not, will be April 28th. And then the next consumer price index report will be coming out May 10th. So the next consumer price index report will be coming out May 10th. The Federal Reserve goal is to reach inflation rate at 2%. Not sure if that's gonna happen because right now we're at 5%. So we're gonna see if the Fed, their next meeting will be scheduled for May 2nd to the 3rd. So we're gonna see if they're gonna be increasing the Fed rate or not, or just put a pause on the Fed rate and just focus on the credit tightness. So once again, it's NZD. Hope you got some value out of this. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you next time. Peace.